Kyle here from All Media Reviews. Here to do, trying to do albums of the year, rough draft, because that's what all these really are to my mind, from 1982. So, get going here. You know, I'm finding that, my kitty cat showing up, not the best time, that the early 80s aren't as good as I thought. You know, I mean, I'm more of I think about some of the late 70s, and I thought the albums weren't as good in the late 70s, but actually, I kind of think there's more stuff from the late 70s I'm enjoying. There's more than I would have expected to enjoy than the early 80s, and I'm wondering if throughout the once we get into like the real prog and prog metal eras, once I get into that, hopefully, it will be a little more second nature, and I can totally feel like justify my belief that these years were better. But anyway. So this is 25, and this is an album I bought, and I really maybe listened to it once, and I haven't been online, I haven't listened to this record, but this is John Anderson's Animation, which is like his second or third solo album. Man, I love Elias and Hillo, but everything else I've heard from him has been sort of hit and miss. That one fantastic record does have Jack Bruce, interesting, but I don't know. That's why this is a rough draft, so someday this may find its way higher up, because it's the early John Anderson. I know he worked with Vangelis around that same time, but anyway. Number 24, a lot of these I don't have copies of, and my wife doesn't have copies, or I can't find her copies. But this one, King Crimson's Beat. I think among the three 80s, that era of the Discipline era, it's probably the one I like the least. Anyway. Number 23, Jethro Tull's Broadsword and the Beast. Again, nondescript. I couldn't tell you much about it. Number 22, Phil Collins' Hello, I Must Be Going, which has I Don't Care Anymore, and his cover of You Can't Hurry Love. I mean, you know, between that and, was it No Jacket Required? I mean, he had just a ton of hits, but I haven't spent time with listening to the albums. I know a lot of the radio songs, but anyway. 21, Split Enz, this album I just checked out for the first time a few weeks ago, Time and Tide. You could tell that those guys were going toward, you know, the crowded house stuff eventually, but I'm still kind of struggling a little with Split Enz, is that I thought I was going to like them. I'm liking 10cc more, where I think that the songs are there for the most part, but it's like the lead vocals aren't strong enough. I don't know. But I still like moments of their music. Maybe one day it will totally click with me. Them, and then, was it the Prefab Sprouts, the other one, which I haven't spent any time with, really. Number 20, Asia's debut album, Heat of the Moment, of course, and Only Time Will Tell were the two biggest hits. I thought I was going to love Asia, but they're not a prog band as much as they had, you know, all these guys from prog bands, progressive rock bands between, my kitty cat is scratching our box, as you can see right now. This is what he likes to do when he's bored. He wants attention, and I'm making a video. Yeah, I just... Kaja, stop it! No. Let me just grab him. This is ridiculous. My apologies. You come here. You're gonna be on the camera with me where I go over this list and show the records. I won't be able to hold you on the records at the same time. So yeah, I just their whole sound. Steve Howe, John Wetton, really did. Carl Palmer, you know, Jeff Downes, right? It's plasticky. I mean, it's still not the worst thing I ever heard, but I have the same feeling about Saga and a lot of bands that have come since, the quote-unquote, you know, like AOR prog, if you want to call it that. So anyway, that's why it's number 20. Number 19, okay, I'm surprised it's this low, actually. I thought I had it slightly higher. This is like splitting hairs, but giving the set list especially, but Al Di Meola's Tour de Force live, which, yeah, I mean, it has Egyptian Danza, The Elegant Gypsy Suite, Race with the Devil on the Spanish Highway. Actually, this should probably go a fair amount higher, but it's a live album, and it's like I haven't listened to it that much. I mean, I love Al Di Meola. I mean, I probably would go just listen to his studio records first. It's not the only thing from Al Di Meola's list, though, oddly enough. That's why this is actually number 15, my bad. Al Di Meola's Electric Rendezvous is number 19, which I haven't listened to in years, so my bad. Number 18, Huey Lewis and the News. I knew that was in the right order, and I had that wrong. Picture This, the second Huey Lewis, and I didn't think I had the first one, but This has 2 big hits, although it has a bunch of good songs. But I always thought this is, when I got into Huey Lewis, this is one of the first ones I bought, and it had the song "Working for a Living." But this has "Do You Believe in Love?" And I was listening to this the other day, and I was like, there's some other good songs on here. As you can tell, I haven't really bought. I have some like picture this. Picture this. From Huey, but not a lot. I got the Back to the Future soundtrack, which I showed on a vinyl video. A Change of Heart, I also, it's the early stuff. They would do better things, but I still have a soft spot for him, and still not a bad record. So that's number 18? Am I doing this correct? Yeah, Al Di Meo's Electric Rendezvous at number 19 or 18. So number 17, we have Bruce Springsteen, Nebraska. It's kind of a depressing record. I know my friend used to talk about it. It's like, well, why do you listen to that? I don't even have the disc in here still. It does have the song Atlantic City. That song and Johnny 99 are the 2 I think of it most for. But it's more him doing like ballads and kind of waiting. There isn't a lot of like pop bangers on this. But, it's the sort of still within the classic Springsteen period of the 70s and early 80s for me. Or even just the 80s Springsteen. Well, I did really like The Rising that came out about 20 years ago. Maybe when I do 2000, whenever that year, 2004, it will show up on there. Number 16, Kate Bush's The Dreaming, which that was the first like Kate Bush album I listened to a number of years ago when Steven Wilson was talking about the influence for A Hand Cannot Erase. And I like parts of it. I remember, but Kate Bush is one of those artists that I don't hate her. Like I haven't probably spent enough time to really know if I'd ever get fully into. Some of her vocals are just so screechy on it. I can't be fully won over by her. There's specific songs, but I think a lot of people have become the Stranger Things have gotten more into the record after it, Hounds of Love. But I just I've only spent time with The Dreaming, and I didn't have any on here. I didn't hard any on here. This is the remaster. I just remember that it's like that's an interesting part, but now she's going kind of. She sounds like a cat. The title track. So anyway. I'm not going to be able to elaborate too much on that record. So, number 16, number 15 is Tour de Force. So, I already showed this. But yeah, I mean, I even think it probably could go up a little higher than this. But yes, because the set list alone, again, I would probably still lean toward listening to Al's studio records first. But I've seen him live a couple times. But yeah, this is from this sort of classic period, the early, like the stuff from like the late 70s and early 80s. So. So number 15, number 14, a record that I've, is in here for canon mostly, and I don't even consider it like really from a standard standpoint, but it is Zeppelin. It's the Zeppelin name. It's the Coda record, which is just leftovers and stuff like that. The version of I Can't Quit You Baby, I think I prefer. I like Wearing and Tearing a little bit. Ozone Baby. We're Gonna Groove is nice. It's still the most nondescript Zeppelin release, but it has to go on here somewhere, and by comparison, I've listened to it more than some of these other records. So that's number 14, right? Yep. Number 13, we're getting into some of the stuff that my better half has, of course. Hall & Oates' H2O, which, among others, includes Maneater, Family Man, One on One, and Italian Girls. And I know that Italian Girls was a John Oates led vocal. I actually am listening to some of these Hall & Oates records. I like some of his vocals a lot. I don't think he's a better singer than Daryl, but this is one of their sort of 3, 4, 5 key records in the 80s especially. Yeah, everyone knows Maneater. I can't remember if there was anything else I had on my playlist. I don't think from this. That was it. I mean, Italian Girls is probably the one from this album that I hadn't really been familiar with, and I can say now I'm a fan of. So that's H2O from Hall & Oates. Number what is it? Number 13. So number 12, we have a this is almost like an EP, or it's like a covers record. Van Halen's Diver Down, and among the raw stuff, I mean, it's not my favorite, but I kind of almost think that this jewel case could be doing better. it may have my favorite David Lee Roth Van Halen song in Little Guitars. That's a fantastic riff. That's just a banger. It's so upbeat and energetic and happy. But it does have some of their other, like, sort of notable. Where Have All the Good Times Gone? Their cover of Pretty Woman and Dancing in the Street are both pretty good. So Happy Trails I went to camp. We sang that, and they used to sing that at the Metrodome when the Posing's relief pitcher would get sent out. Happy Trails to you. But yeah, I mean, to me, this is less just like some of the other Van Halen, Roth stuff. Some of the stuff is not as memorable. Because of Little Guitars alone, this belongs a little bit higher, and that's why it ended up at number 12. Number 11. Well, this record I think is good. I think probably I would want to like it more than I do because it's not my favorite record, but it does have their two biggest songs. Toto 4, of course. You know, Africa was everywhere, and kind of this one album of the year at the Grammys, like in '84 for the '82 whatever year, and of course that's Rosanna, which I've always felt like the Minions have failed, just like Psych with Easy Lover. They never did the duet with that, and the Minions need to do Banana to Rosanna, but it's got one other just huge track on here that was just another pop single banger. And this is the album most people know Toto for as much as... did I not put this stuff on here? I Won't Hold Back. That's it. That's the one I put on the playlist. Which should be probably my... my approach usually with these, is just to kind of look at what I put on the playlist. The problem is some of the stuff isn't on Spotify, so... Yeah, I mean, it's a good record. It was right around the time they were doing Thriller, too. They recorded this, so go figure. You know, it probably helped, but... yeah, Toto 4, good record at number 11. So now we're getting into the top 10, right? Yep. So I don't have a copy of this, but I've listened to it off and on over the years. 3 Sides Live from Genesis, of course. It's a lot of the post-Hackett Genesis stuff, although they did do some of the classics in it. At least one version of it. But, yeah, I'm not going to be able to elaborate too much. I don't listen to 3 Sides Live very much, but, it's Genesis, and it does have, I still love that period of Genesis with Duke, and, I like some of Abacab, of course, but I don't have a physical copy at this point, unfortunately, of it. So number 9, Joe Jackson's Night and a Day. I have been falling in love with this record. I mean, it has Stepping Out, which is a banger. If I was choosing my top 100 tracks, I would have a hard time not including that. And one of like the top maybe 50 songs from the 80s. However, the rest of the record doesn't sound exactly like that, but it's really good. Like, Joe Jackson is a fantastic songwriter. He uses piano, and I mentioned this when I was talking about the debut album, Look Sharp. That song Target is a banger. That is awesome. I posted it on social media a couple weeks ago. It's Afro-Cuban jazz, super catchy and uplifting. Breaking Us in Two was another sort of minor hit, Another World. I need to get a physical copy of this. I need to spend more time with it, but that's why I put it up to number 9. So number 8, this album is filled with radio songs. Duran Duran's Rio, one of the ones my brother had, of course, growing up. And almost every song got on the radio, and almost every song had a video. Kind of, they had their first album, but this kind of broke them really to stardom. Title track, New Religion, Save a Prayer, Lonely in Your Nightmare, Hungry Like the Wolf was probably the biggest song on here, even though it's about a stalker, of course. My Own Way, Hold Back the Rain. I mean, part of like Jake Rude's show, he plays a lot of their stuff, so I've heard a lot of these songs in recent years, but I kind of think among Duran Duran's catalog, this might be at least their most consistent, deepest record from a standpoint of track after track after track after track. It may not be my favorite. I don't know. I mean, it's like kind of splitting hairs to them, but yeah, I mean, I can understand why people consider this. Some people consider this the best record. The song Rio is great. The title track alone, if I chose one on there, but Save a Prayer, Lonely in Your Nightmare. I mean, I just remember all those songs growing up because they were all over the place on radio and MTV, of course. So number 7, Iron Maiden. I don't have a copy of Number of the Beast, which I know best when Dream Theater covered it 20 years ago. That was their version of it. But of course, it includes "Run to the Hills." That's the song that's most well known. But the song "Hallowed by Thy Name," I think it's "Hallowed by Thy Name." That's an awesome track. I mean, Iron Maiden, like I said, a lot of their sounds sound samey. It is the first album with Bruce Dickinson, and I don't know if one day Iron Maiden as a whole will, at least their '80s stuff, will totally click for me. My love of Fate's Warning and other '80s metal, Sabotage, Queensryche, of course. But I mean, the title track is really good. Children of the Damned. I like Gangland. I know some people don't like Gangland. There's like 2 songs in Acacia Avenue people don't like on this album. But anyway, I mean, it was kind of like if I liked one Maiden album, that would be it. But I don't know. It's like, well, a lot of people go with Power Slave. I'll have to just, before I do the other albums of the year, I'll have to give those a go. I just know individual songs more than the full albums from Maiden, even the 80s stuff. As much as it sounds weird given my tastes in prog and prog metal, and 80s prog metal specifically. So that was number 7. Number 6, we have a record that I guess I want to love more than it, but XTC's English Settlement. Of course, it has Senses Working Overtime. That's what's best known for. But Jason and the Argonauts is another one that's a favorite. The second half of that song is really fun. Knuckle Down, Ball and Chain. I remember the XTC show with Terry Chambers, and the tributes usually would play Ball and Chain. It is a double album, although I don't consider it super, super long. And I think they're a little more grounded in their songwriting. I think they were experimenting a little before this, but yeah, I mean, some people think this is their best record. I wouldn't go that far. It's about properly rated. I think it's a good record. It's up to this point, it was their best record. They do better stuff after this to me, but I know people love Drums and Wires, but anyway. So yeah, because I mean, personally, my taste with XTC that's kind of my feeling, as they got better as they went through the 80s. I got more into their records from what my experiences with them. So number 5, we have Prince's 1999, and I'd only know a lot of the singles before I visited this a couple weeks back. It's got the title track, Little Red Corvette, and Delirious. Those are the most well-known songs on it. The thing about this album, though, is that the songs are really, like, they go on for a while. And like English Settlement, it's a double album. It's weird. Lady Cab Driver is really good. Some of it is jazzy. A lot of it, of course, is funk. He's using a lot of synths and stuff like that, so it's not as much guitar as I'd prefer, but I gave it, like, International Lover, Something in the Way, something in the Way You Are. Something in the Water, Does Not Compute. DMSR, Let's Pretend. It's a mood record, but I mean, it's finishing this high because there's more to like than not to like, and it's Prince. I mean, those 3 hits, I mean, Delirious hasn't been overplayed, but everyone knows 1999 and Little Red Corvette, though. But anyway, they're both decent songs. I'm not sick of them like I'm sick of Zeppelin, Black Dog, and some other songs like that. So number 4, all right, we're getting to the very top of the year here, of the rough draft, because that's what this is again. Peter Gabriel's Security, which has Shock the Monkey, of course, San Jacinto, and I Have the Touch. I mean, I've always liked this album, although I have to admit I haven't visited this and Melt and the other ones. I like Melt a little more, but Kiss of Life is another one. I think that's the one that might feature Kate Bush or something like that. I forget. Yeah, Kiss of Life. Yeah, I mean, it's Rhythm of the Heat. The opening track is decent. I think he was the real avant-garde or kind of more experimental stuff he was doing in the 70s was more spotty. He's becoming more consistent with Melt and this album. This album I don't think it's quite as good as Melt, but it's Peter Gabriel 3 and Peter Gabriel 4. But anyway, yeah, I have a friend that thinks this is his best record, and I can understand why. So that's number 3. Number 3, right? No, number 4. Number 3, Pat Metheny Group, as I need to be continually remind myself, and it's not Pat Metheny, the album Off Ramp. This is, I think, the first album where he really started using the Synclavier synth guitar tones, and I'm a sucker for that. Though it does not have Paul Wertigo. He would not come on till I think the next record, but Dan Gottlieb's still a really good drummer. The title track, Olay, and Are You Going With Me? Yeah, those are my biggest highlights. They're both like 8 minutes. Those last two, Olate. And it's kind of less is more. I mean, it's Pat Metheny from the '80s. He didn't go on forever with a lot of these albums. The ones that aren't like avant-garde or free jazz, but yeah, I think about Off Ramp. I've always noticed is that almost every Pat Metheny fan at least cites this as an album they like, if they don't love. I mean, it's almost the most universally liked Pat Metheny album, I think. I don't know why it is, but it's just a Pat Metheny group album. Again, I think it was because of the first one he really got into using that synthy guitar sound. So number 2, of course, we have what hasn't shown up on this list yet, the obvious nostalgia, big nostalgia, Michael Jackson's Thriller, which, again, a lot of these songs have been played over and over again, but I think it still holds up. It's a masterpiece in sort of modernized music from that point. Quincy Jones, of course, the hits, Beat It, I Want to Be Starting Something, the title track. The title track's probably my go-to still. Human Nature I do love, as long as my wife doesn't care for it. It sounds kind of like Toto. PYT, The Girl Is Mine. I think this is the one that's from here that was with McCartney. It like Duran Duran's Rio. It's consistently, it's song after song after song that is of a high quality, and I know it's not an album I'll listen to frequently. If I'd listen to a few tracks here and there, go back and visit the album. But just from a standpoint of respect it. There's a reason why it's sold 1 billion copies, and it's one of the top 5 albums selling of all time. So, Michael Jackson's Thriller, and of course, it was a kid. This was one of the, if not the signature trademark music I listened to as growing up, as a grade schooler. So, and number 1, of course, we have to have Rush. Signals. I'm a Rush fanatic, lifer fan, and I actually prefer this album over Moving Pictures, believe it or not. If I'm ranking the tracks on here, I think I'll always say The Analog Kid's my favorite song on here. The riff is so good. Losing It is a damn close second, though. Subdivisions is probably the one kind of hit. New World Man got more radio play, but Subdivisions become more popular in the last couple decades. I still get goosebumps, and that song I'll never get sick of, probably, as much as people cite it frequently, and they always start doing it. And Rush play it live all the time. Chemistry, The Weapon, Countdown I've always liked. There's not a bad song on here, just like a lot of Rush albums. And I think because radio hasn't killed it, I love New World Man as much as maybe the band weren't crazy about it. I think it's more enjoyable, and I appreciate it, and I'd rank it slightly higher if I was ranking my Rush albums for something like Moving Pictures. I wouldn't put it above Permanent Wave necessarily, but and I love the synth era. I love the era before, but I also love the synth era, even though they were starting to use the synths at this point. They're starting to use the synths maybe even with Permanent Waves, but the records that subsequently followed it did more with synths, of course, but I'm not bothered. Oh, Digital Man I didn't even mention. At one point I was obsessed with Digital Man. I was trying to learn the bass line for that. It's one of Geddy Lee's top 5 bass lines for me. So that's 1982. Oh, my voice is cracked. I'm talking too much. Go on to try to do 1983 maybe by the end of this week and early next week. But again, these are rough drafts, so it might be in the blog if I'm not doing YouTube at the time. I don't know. But my intention is to do all these all over again, because I keep on finding record after record after record. I'm finding physical copies too that I didn't have for the videos. So, but thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Give it a like. Ring the notification bell. Love to see your list from 1982. And we'll see you next time.